Okay, this next question comes from Brad, and Brad says, when starting your inventory stock, how do you first pay for the order? Did you use your own money, an investor, or take a loan? I'm trying to make a production order from a factory and would like any advice on capital needed. The background is, in my business, I need to place an inventory stock order. Since this is a first big order, I do not have any recurring revenue from any previous order. I have done all sample orders and everything looks good now, and it's time for a production order. Is there any advice you can give me on big order amounts if you were purchasing again for the first time? Did you bootstrap, take a loan, have an investor? Trying to find my way of making revenue and using that for reoccurring shipments. Okay, Brad, well, I used my own personal savings. There have been times that I've put orders on credit card. What I like to do, if at all possible, and you're going to see this with a new company that I am relaunching that's a product company like yours, I'm going to try and get thousands and thousands of pre-orders. And that way, I could take the money from those pre-orders to order the initial large order of inventory. So let's say that my margin is 50% and I'm charging $10 for an item, which means my cost is $5. And I go out there and I get an initial order for 1,000 items, and that's gonna bring in $10,000. My cost is only $5,000, which means I can order, it's 5,000, which means I can actually order 2,000 items at $5 a piece as opposed to only 1,000, right? So I'm going to leverage pre-orders to get my initial order plus 100% of that order in that situation, depending on what your margins are. I would urge you to check and see if you can establish a way to get some sort of pre-orders that can help with cash if cash is your issue. Otherwise, the only options available to us are use our savings, use credit cards, use a home equity line of credit, borrow anywhere that we can. The only thing to be careful of is when you borrow, remember, you got to start paying that back. And the last thing you want to do is be unsure of what your sales cycle is going to be when you're borrowing money. Once you understand your sales cycle, then borrow as much as you can, because your margins and profits off of your sales, as long as you're flipping inventory, are going to far outweigh the interest payments that you're going to make. I know a lot of small companies use factoring companies. You won't be able to do that for your first order, but as you get going, you can look into factoring companies as well. I personally would never bring in an investor for equity in my company just to buy inventory. That would be a long-term mistake. It would help in the short term, but it would be a long-term mistake. If your company does well and they are investing money in your company just for the initial production order, now they own a percentage of your company forever. So imagine if you become a $50 million company and you give them 10% of the company for a $100,000 investment in the beginning. That would be a bad investment from your side. You might get an investor to loan you the money, but not to get equity. That would be my opinion. I wouldn't do equity for an investor in that situation. But this is small business ownership, man. This is where we get second and third jobs. This is where we do everything that we've got to in order to put the capital together for our business. This is where the most won't, I will mindset comes into play. All right. When I first started my last company, I would order a few computers at a time, and I was using my own personal savings, which I didn't have a lot of it at the time. So I know the feeling very, very well, man. All right. Good question.